Cafe is an interesting space. It has been with us, with humanity, for a long time in many different cultures. The interesting thing about cafe is that as a space, it has been interacted with many different ways. And today, I want to talk about the ways that the cafes were used in Taiwan, how Taiwanese interact with cafes as a space. The first way that Taiwanese cafe are used are as a space of socialization. Cafe is a unique environment where it's a mediated space between privacy and socialization. Where when we go to a cafe, when we talk to our friends, we expect some sort of privacy, yet it's open space where everybody can hear as well. What I found in Taiwan is that cafes were a very woman driven space. And in researches, it was found that the cafes were a very important element of women's socialization life. And they felt like it was essential to maintain friendships. And what I've also seen in Taiwan was that it was less about meeting new people, but it was more about meeting people they already know. So, such as friends, families, or someone they love. The second way that cafes are used in Taiwan is as a workspace. When I went to cafes in Taiwan, that the most fascinating thing about it was a lot of people were there studying or working on their projects from their laptops, or I've even seen some graphics display model where people just drew their projects, and that's what they do entire time in cafes. And it was expected as a norm. The cafes expected the people to come and stay for a long time doing work, so the cafe seating arrangements, the infrastructure catered to those needs. Then my question came about where how does cafe owners make sure there's enough turnover for the revenue? Because if people stay longer, they wouldn't be paying enough. And from my visits, what I realized is that there's two ways that cafe owners make sure there's enough turnover, which is first way is the time limitation, where they limit how long people can stay, which is usually 2 hours, or the minimum spend, which is what day of the week you have to spend minimum amount to stay at a cafe. What I also found unique is that cafe staff does not enforce these time limitations actively, yet I've seen that customers themselves enforce these hours themselves, which to me indicates the high levels of conformity as a value in this culture. And this using of a cafe as a workspace is because of the high cost of rent, where rental spaces in Taipei are expensive, so they don't really have an adequate workspace in their home. Hence, they usually come out to these cafes to work on their projects or study something. The third way that the cafes are used for is as a third space. The concept of third space was created by the sociologist called Ray Oldenburg, where he talked about a space that we occupy that is not your home and that is not your work. A lot of people in Taiwan, due to the high cost of rent, still lives with their families. Hence, they feel they need some sense of autonomy or some sort of privacy in their lives. Hence, they use cafes a lot, where cafes give that psychological, physiological, and gives you a sense of autonomy while you're in the cafe. Because the unique thing about cafe is that it's an environment that we feel like we can control. If you feel like socialization, you can go to baristas or you can go to cafe staff and talk to them. But if you feel like you need privacy, you can sit down with your earphones and you can isolate yourself there. If you feel like you need to eat or drink, food is very accessible there as well. So it's a space that we feel like we can control, and that's why it gives sense of autonomy to a lot of Taiwanese people. I thought about what if someone from overseas comes to Taiwan to open a cafe, what kind of business advice would I give them? And the first thing I thought about was you need to understand your users. And there's two types of users, which are first is solo users, where they come to work, so they stay for a long time. And second type of user is the people who come for socialization. And I've seen those are usually 3 to 4 people, not more than those. So your seating arrangements or your infrastructures in the cafe needs to accommodate to those needs. The second element that was really essential was that people cared about space as a socialization space, but it needs to feel like it's a luxury. So the design of the space is essential. The design needs to be aesthetic for people to feel that it's a space they want to hang out with their friends. The third advice I'll give is the revenue model, where it's normal to expect a time limitation or minimum spend in cafes, and you should accommodate to those as people are going to stay a longer period of time. But overall, I think the most important part of all of this as a business advice is that you need to understand that cafes are not just a business space, but it's a social and emotional space for Taiwanese people. And you need to be able to cater to those needs in order to have a successful business. So that was the cafe experience and coffee culture in Taiwan. And that's Min.